So I think a homeless person could point out the problems that this country faces. I think a homeless person could actually point out the solutions that go along with the problems that we have in this country. But you know what? You can't be homeless and run for President of the United States. I think you have to have a resume. And my resume is, I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. I did grow a one-man handyman business to employ over 1,000 people. I sold that business in 1999. Nobody lost their job, and that allows me to have a full-time unpaid job running for President of the United States. I had never been involved in politics prior to running for governor of New Mexico. No prior political anything. I went and I introduced myself to the Republican Party a couple of weeks before I announced. John Latusio, the chairman of the Republican Party in New Mexico, he said, "Wow, I like you, I like what you've got to say. You know, we're an inclusive party, we're going to include you in this whole process. You can come to all the debates, all the discussions, travel the state, take part in all the meetups. You'll be terrific for the process, but you just need to know that you will never get elected. That it's not possible to come from completely outside of politics and get elected governor in a state that's 2-to-1 Democrat." Well, I got elected, and I think I would like to base that on what I had to say. I think the reason was what I had to say, which was, let's just bring a common sense business approach to state government. Best product, best service, lowest price, less government is better government, keep government out of the bedroom. I got elected. I may have vetoed more legislation than the other 49 governors in the country combined. I vetoed 750 bills. I had thousands of line item vetoes. I took line item veto to a new art form. A lot of that was billions of dollars worth of spending. A lot of that was legislation that, in my opinion, was just going to add time and money to your and my life. Wasn't going to make us any more healthy. Wasn't going to make us any safer. I vetoed that kind of legislation. How did that all turn out? I would like to think the fact that I got re-elected by a bigger margin the second time than the first time in a state that's 2-to-1 Democrat speaks volumes to the fact that people really do appreciate good stewardship of tax dollars. Over this last election cycle, there were 3 polls, there was a study. One of them was the favorability of all the presidential candidates in his or her own state. There was only one presidential candidate viewed favorably in his or her own state, and that was me. And how does that work out? Well, in New Mexico, people wave at me with all 5 fingers, not just one. And then they did a study on job creation. Which presidential candidate had the best record when it came to job creation? Well, that was me. And the response to that was the same response I gave as governor of New Mexico. I didn't create one single job as governor of New Mexico. The private sector creates jobs. But because I controlled all the boards and commissions, because I appointed the heads of all the agencies, in essence, I controlled all rules and regulations in New Mexico. And I want to suggest to you that rules and regulations got better on a daily basis, and that getting better was just a root in common sense. If it wasn't going to make us any safer, if it wasn't going to make us any more healthy, if it was just going to add time and money to our lives, why have those rules and regulations? And then lastly, and I think this is really important, the ACLU, came out with a report card on all of the presidential candidates last December. ACLU, a group dedicated to the Constitution, a group dedicated to the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, they came out with a report card. 24 Liberty Torches was a perfect score. I think this is really important. Mitt Romney and Rick Santorum had 0 Liberty Torches out of 24. Newt Gingrich had 4 Liberty Torches out of 24. President Obama had 16 Liberty Torches out of 24. Ron Paul had 18 Liberty Torches out of 24. And Gary Johnson had 21 Liberty Torches. So something that's very, very important in this presidential election is that I believe that I am going to be on the ballot in all 50 states. Now, right now I am on the ballot in 47 states and the District of Columbia. We are litigated in the other 3. We believe that we are going to prevail in the other 3. But what I want to point out here is that there are other candidates for President of the United States, but none of them are going to come close to this 50 ballot access. And that I will come close to this 50 ballot access, if not actually achieving getting on the ballot in all 50 states. So there are some big differences between myself and my 2 opponents. Again, there are other candidates, but none of them come close to 50 state ballot access. So there are some big differences from me and my other 2 opponents. I'm the only candidate that does not want to bomb Iran. We bomb Iran, we're going to find ourselves in a 2-year bombing maintenance program of Iran. And where is the military threat? And where was the largest demonstration in support of the United States after 9/11? It was in Iran. It was in Tehran, where over 1 million demonstrators showed up in support of the United States. We bomb Iran, we're going to find ourselves with another 100 million enemies to this country that we would not otherwise have but for our military interventions.
Yeah!
I am the only candidate that wants to end the war in Afghanistan tomorrow and bring the troops home. The root of all evil, politicians that beat their chests and talk about saving us from all of the ills of the world, one of those ills being the terrorists, and in the name of fighting terrorism, involve our military in interventions that, but for these interventions, we would not have hundreds of millions of enemies to this country that we would otherwise not have. In the name of protecting us against the terrorist threat, we have tens of thousands of innocent people dying in these countries where we militarily intervene, and we have our men and service women coming back in body bags or coming back with their limbs blown off. Let's stop with the military interventions that continue to have us as the bully of the world, not the savior of the world. I'm the only candidate that believes marriage equality is a constitutionally guaranteed right on par with civil rights of the 60s. Marriage equality now. I'm the only candidate that wants to end the drug wars now. Legalize. It's on the ballot in Colorado to legalize marijuana, to regulate marijuana like alcohol. I think it speaks for itself. I think it's going to be the first of 50 state dominoes that are going to bring rational drug policy to this country. Citizens of Denver 6 years ago voted to decriminalize marijuana on a campaign based on marijuana being safer than alcohol. It's going to happen in Colorado. If it doesn't happen in Colorado, it's soon to happen. We are at a tipping point. It's because we're talking about it, and the more we talk about it, the better people understand that this is just like the prohibition of alcohol.
Yeah.
How does having a president work that would veto all kinds of stuff? I would have vetoed the Patriot Act. I would have never established the Department of Homeland Security, and I would have never then established the TSA. As President of the United States, I would have vetoed the National Defense Authorization Act, allowing for arrest and detainment of you and I as U.S. citizens without being charged. This is why we fought wars in this country. I am the only candidate advocating a balanced budget now. If we don't balance the budget now, we are going to find ourselves in a monetary collapse. What's a monetary collapse? Very simply, it's when the dollars that we have don't buy a thing because of the accompanying inflation that goes along with borrowing and printing money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar that we spend. Balancing the federal budget now means taking on the entitlements. Medicaid, Medicare. It means taking on military spending, taking military spending back to 2003 spending levels, believing the biggest threat to our national security is the fact that we borrow and print money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar that we're spending.
In the Fed!
Yes!
I am the only candidate that would abolish the Federal Reserve if Congress would. Treasury prints money, Federal Reserve gives the money to the bank, gives the money to the banks at 0%, to the banks loan it out to you or I. No, they buy treasuries in a closed loop. It's like Bernie Madoff with a printing machine. It is an inside game. Audit of the Federal Reserve shining light on this inside game. Look, we're all taking it on the chin. We're all taking it on the chin in the name of what? So I'm the only candidate that would sign legislation repealing legal tender laws allowing for competing currencies. So a word about my opponents. Mitt Romney. I guess he's supposed to be a smart guy, but he says a couple of things. One thing he says is that it's a no-brainer to build a fence across the border. You are looking at someone here who has not one molecule of brain based on that statement. That would be a ridiculous thing to do, would be to build a fence across the border. Mitt Romney says that we should balance the federal budget, but that we should hold Medicare intact and that we should increase our spending for defense. We all finished the second grade, and there was a mathematics competency that went along with graduating from the second grade. It doesn't add up, and this is what we're supposed to believe in. We're having a debate in this country right now over who's going to spend more money, the Democrats or the Republicans, on Medicare when we have to cut Medicare spending. We have to. And yet the discussion is who's going to spend more money. The alternative is no health care for those over 65. The alternative, Medicaid, is no health care for those that are poor. Barack Obama, I have to tell you, when it comes to his violin and the words that come out of his violin, it is music. Everything that he says, I think, is terrific. When he ran for election, when he talked about gay issues, I thought, we're going to move ahead in this area. When he talked about our military interventions and ending this state of constant war, I really believed him. And when he talked about the drug war, and when he made the explicit promise to not raid medical marijuana facilities with federal government money in states where legislatures or citizens voted to implement these programs, and right now flying in the face of that by raiding medical marijuana facilities in Colorado and California, nothing matches up with the words. The words are terrific. The words are terrific, but the reality behind them are absolutely non-existent. I don't think we could be at more of a crossroads in this country right now. The notion of wasted vote. What is a more wasted vote than voting for somebody that you don't believe in? Vote for who you believe in. That's how we're going to change things in this country. And right now, I am polling at 6% nationally. Let me ask you this question. Are you hearing my name 6 times every time you're hearing Obama or Romney's name 100 times? I suggest to you, you're not hearing my name 1 time for every 5,000 times you hear Romney or Obama. So that's the good news, bad news about all this. The good news is that Americans want change. We all understand that we have to engage in this process of mutual sacrifice, or we're going to find ourselves with nothing. I want to thank all of you for being here today. We are doing a 40 college and university tour. I'm doing 20. Judge Jim Gray is doing 20. So from here, I'm headed to San Francisco this evening. I want to apologize in advance for heading back out to the airport, but we have a great group of speakers that follow me. And lastly, let me just pose this question to you. What if everybody here and more wastes their vote on Gary Johnson? I will be the next president of the United States, and I pledge to you that we will make a difference in this country, that we will take on the issues that face this country and do it in a way that we all mutually sacrifice to achieve that. Crony capitalism is alive and well in this country. Both parties have their hands out to sell loopholes, and individuals, groups, and corporations pay for those loopholes. I am the only candidate that is promising to advocate on the part of eliminating the income tax, corporate tax, abolishing the IRS, and replacing all of that with one federal consumption tax that I'm going to argue at its root will be much, much, much better than what we currently have. I think it's the answer when it comes to American exports, that we're going to bleed all existing non-transparent tax out of all goods and services. It's the answer to making our goods and services 23% more competitive when it comes to export. It's the answer when it comes to China. It's really the answer when it comes to jobs, because in a zero corporate tax rate environment, if the private sector doesn't create tens of millions of jobs, I don't know what it's going to take to create tens of millions of jobs. And this is kicking crony capitalism in the rear end, because there'll be no more tax deductions. Issuing pink slips, adopt the fair tax, we're talking about pink slips to half of Washington lobbyists, because that's why they're there. So to finish, my request, waste your vote. Waste your vote, vote for me as President of the United States, and I will be President of the United States, and I guarantee you I will wake up every single morning and doggedly pursue everything it is here that I am talking about. Thank you very, very much.